So I've been playing Lost Odyssey. Through doing this, I've slowly grown to realize that I end up liking things for somewhat obscure reasons, so to say. For instance, what tipped me over the edge to finally give Lost Odyssey a try wasn't seeing some of its beautiful locales, hearing its music, or catching a glimpse of its beefy turn-based combat. Nah, it was all because they look the same, is what I'm saying. Though I will also admit that the fact that it uses pre-render style camera angles is also pretty cool. Because yeah, for all intents and purposes, this is a PS1 JRPG in HD. HD coming in very big quotations, as it clearly isn't too high res, nor does it run any better than a paralyzed legless turtle. You see, Mistwalker made this, i.e. the studio founded by The Gooch after his big square mutiny where he left the money and ran, leaving him with fuck all budget to create his shit, but he has passion. And as such, Lost Odyssey takes place in the ambitiously sized world of I don't know its fucking name the game doesn't say and neither does the wiki. And in this world, there is change, political change, climate change, and lifestyle change, as in a very daring move that no other JRPG has ever moved before, the once fantasy-like lifestyle with the knights and princesses and kings has come under fire due to technology taking hold. And while this technology might make for big fancy billboards, big cyber steampunk, monorails, weird cars, and all manner of cool mechs and shit, it also caused the inventors of which, the Republicans, to lolly some lulelos. Animals to turn into monsters, but then also Sauron. Yeah, and my boy Kaim just so happened to be smack dick in the middle of that, dicking his smack with so much fervor that he survived without a scratch. Leading people on all sides of this war to be like, yo dude, what the fuck? With him staunchly standing his stance of, I don't know. So, they conclude that he must be immortal, and therefore will be pushed and pulled all across the globe to find out what do, banding together with disenfranchised royalty, a drunk, 2 pirate, some kids, and many a titty. Oh my. Boat? Yes. Hundreds of giant towns? Yes. Epic dungeons? Hell yes. World map? Who dat? Much like many RPGs from the J's, the game remains fairly linear. Though, unlike its Ying, the areas that you'll go to will all be open, with loads of treasure, events, and side quests. And I don't mean like fucking grab me 5 wolf pelts from the eastern sands level side quests either. This stuff has like actual substance that makes the game feel more special. For instance, you might accidentally bump into a child whilst trying to probe a pot because the movement has Sonic the Hedgehog-esque momentum for some dumb fucking reason, only to have that child tell you that to join their secret club, you need to find some hidden treasures. Any normal person would be all like, fuck you, kid! But this sick, smuck bastard is just cheeky enough to rope you into questage, and before you know it, you end up saving the townsfolk of a port town from their Cthulhu fish monster curse after infiltrating a witch's spooky mansion, and end up in what is essentially Midgar Part 2. This be the type of game where you can play around with an organ while eyeing up a waitress, only to notice that the right side of the organ has high notes, and that the left side has the lower ones. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 right out of the gate based on that dumb level of dumbfuck detail alone, but then I do also sadly have to strike it down like 9 or so points as you're unable to interact with the cats and dogs. Though it is honestly rare to see a game rewarding my I need to talk to everyone OCD with so much aplomb. And I don't even know what the fuck aplomb is supposed to be, though it's probably one of these. It has random encounters too, by the way, but the encounter rate is honestly so low that they may as well have been scripted. I guess it feels very considerate in a way. Like, not once did I get chest busted or bum fluffed every 10 steps, even when I was legit trying to grind. For review purposes only. I found that I could not, as no matter how many laps I ran around this area, nay a monster ever came out to bother me. which is great for a few reasons. 1, fuck getting bum busted. 2, game balance is fucking excellent, scaling its difficulty alongside your skill and your skill alongside where they want it to be. And 3, battles long, system slow. In fact, the entire game is pretty slow, though in a good way. Yeah, so cutscenes take ages and flow like wine. There's big reads just as well, and loads of additional books and notes pertaining info about where you be, like giving purpose to a one-off rundown fuck hut through being able to read the diaries of the mountain climbers who stayed here. Boss fights are also quite tough, though in their own right. Dungeons are also massive, with big labyrinthian structures as seen on the SNES, but less fuck. And generally, the game often lets you take a load off, reverting to more of an adventure game than anything else. Kinda like Final Fantasy VII's Midgar segment, or Lindblum from FF9. Just letting you fool around town, engaging with its people and learning about it. Demanding loads of time, sure, but being good enough at allocating it that I never felt bothered. I mean, things like the shop owners will have small little micro stories, like one always being late, or this one guy requiring a password for his super secret shop that you get from this dude from his hipster cafe, and so on. All of which giving color to its already colorful locales. Shit's great. However, it can be pretty jarring when you're suddenly dropped into combat after like 2 solid hours of merriment and are expected to use muscle memory and tactics again in order to pull off the cool timed attacks and negotiate the really well-considered enemy setups and varieties. There's a lot to the combat, most of which I will get into, but honestly, the best thing about it is 4, that it's turn-based, and 5, that shit can't be brute-forced. At its core, there's like 2 main mechanics at play here, I guess. The ring that closes in as you attack, requiring you to hold down that fancy-ass 360 trigger, letting it go with a satisfying when overlapped to do big damage, or other special elemental or status effect based features based on equipable rings. And there's also these 2 bars labeled guard conditions. Essentially, both you and your enemies have a front row and a back row, and the front row's combined HP makes up the overall fullness of the guard condition bar, which in turn will act as a type of shield guarding the back row. So now, imagine, if you will, an enemy mage in the back casting buffs on the tank in front with 2 other weaker enemies on either of his sides. Ultimately, you take out that mage before they beef shit up too much, right? Well, you can't do that as long as there is a big strong tank that keeps the guard conditions too high, preventing you from significantly damaging the mage. Meaning that, again, you can't brute force. You always need to consider who to attack and when, but also how to buff up and set up your own guys just as well as to not get steamrolled to hell and back, which, trust me, will happen early on. And additionally, the encounter rate means that the game can do with only 5 or so really well deliberated enemy encounter templates for each area that won't get boring. Especially when you consider the Pokemon-like rock, paper, scissoring elementals and how the game will often shake up your party too. Not to mention the beefy fucking feel of it all, with sweeping pans, big vibrates when ring good, and just fuckloads of fun.
What a thrill.
Fights end up feeling more like puzzles, in which you really need to pull out all the stops every time. You simply can't conservatively hold on to all of your elixirs and end up with like 30 of them by the final boss, still not using them because you can't buy. You can buy here, and you will. Strength potions, defensive shields, hastes, slows, poisons, paralyzes, and all things that will be used against you, requiring you to retaliate appropriately. Though, not all of your buddies can do the do. Thing is that Kaim actually is immortal, as are some of his friends, but only those who are mortal can learn new abilities through leveling up, thus needing Kaim and Co. to link learn abilities from them and equipment, filling up the associated bars with AP as they go. Besides this being a very straightforward system, it also actually has quite the impact given how the game functions overall, as, well, you can't just not grind because of the low encounter rate, as areas will also be capped out in a sense. If you, say, enter a dungeon with 3 characters on level 30, 1 on level 29, and 1 on level 25, the 3 on 30 won't level up for the entire area, the 1 on 29 will level up once on the first battle no matter what you fight, and the 1 on 25 will keep doing that until 32. This means that no one will ever be underleveled for longer than a few minutes, which is fucking great, but this also shifts the focus onto the abilities entirely. Levels are just kind of irrelevant now. They'll just happen, and when they do, new sets of abilities will be unlocked for the mortals that the immortals can then learn from them. So, in short, you can't ever have more cards than what the devs dealt for you for each intended area. I'm sure there's something to be said here about player agency, but no one cares, as it makes the game super fucking balanced and fair all round. Plus, it keeps stuff engaging too, seeing as no one will ever end up playing the same, with how mortals only having the skills that they have and the immortals only being able to learn a limited amount. Basically, though, what I'm trying to get at here is that the yin has far overtaken the yang. XIII has lived hundreds, maybe even thousands of years as an immortal, and so he has seen some shit. And I mean, yeah, the Final Fantasy series has always had a penchant for commenting on real-world issues like social classes, capitalism, power abuse, organized religion, and shit involving the environment, but it's always done so through allegories and made-up in-world lore thingies that correlate, but never blatant. Final Fantasy XIII, though, is blatant, as again, XIII has seen it all, and will happily ponder and reminisce premonition do PTSD style upon seeing something that perks up his brain bits. Only when they leave the island do the brown-skinned people here learn that their skin is a different color from that of the people of the other country, that the language of the island is of no use in the other country, that the people of the other country look on the islanders with cold eyes, that the only way for them to meet people with the same brown skin, the same language, and the same place of birth is to head to the island's people's ghetto in town. And then, of course, the boy happily shows XIII the beautiful light rain on the horizon, which ends up being a bombing wiping the island clean of its brown-skinned inhabitants, with XIII, of course, left behind surrounded by death, as he is at the end of most of these stories. Some are tragic or traumatic, and others are heartwarming. XIII standing up for people, being just too late to save them, or encountering a child inspiring them and meeting them as a senile husk decades later, dementia causing them to remember only him. Really, the best thing I can do is read a few, but a lot of them are like 15 minutes long at least, so I can't really do that. But god fucking damn, is this some strong-ass storytelling. And that's just the supplementary stuff. It's easy to pass XIII off as yet another squall or lightning, but I think that even that wee snippet alone says a lot about why he be how he be.
Enough fooling around.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about him. I don't think he was breastfed.
Well, you get kind of cranky when you're 1,000 years old.
Exactly. Plus, he shows off his kind and caring side all the time, given that he has taken custody of his dead daughter's kids. Dude's just old, pretty much. Not emo or stoic, just old. Which is interesting enough as it is, even without the heavy, deep, intense prodding into what it means to be that old and what it does to you and those you touch along the way, but it also sets up a spicy-ass villain just as well. You see, XIII isn't the only immortal. There's 5. All of them being here long enough to no longer remember why that's the case. And one of them has had enough and revolts, which he does by killing XIII's daughter, turning his wife into a witch, and enslaving XIII to be his boy toy as he does with this lady, as well as taking her granddad-looking-ass son away, slating him for execution, and forces another immortal to erase her memories under threat of wiping out her entire kingdom. Or so he makes them all believe, at least. He pretty much breaks them down emotionally to such a degree that all their memories and emotions have become suppressed, allowing him to have them roll with whatever. And so, the main propellant of the game is them all slowly going, wait, we're doing what? And for who? Only to then find out that everything is fuck. All of which, by the way, is paired with characters that actually emote and cry and are written and acted with a surprising amount of elegance given the entries before it. But I just ended up getting really invested, is what I'm saying. Especially with how irredeemably evil the evil man actually is. There's zero ambiguity here, and I love it. Straight up, from the first scene he's in, dude's scheming and maniacally laughing and plotting out loud. It's fucking great. And hey, even despite all this, it still manages to be quite the jaunty adventure too.
Do you know any places where sailors hang out around here?
Sailors? Yeah, I see them at night.
Tonally, it's quite similar to Wild Arms, Final Fantasy IX, or Tales of Vesperia, in that cities are huge, stakes are huge, villains are huge, and the boobs even huger. But none of that keeps us from having a fun adventure. The script is just so full of this very dry-ass humor. Most NPCs will have a funny quip or two, setting up a meme with one person being all like, "Oh, that shopkeeper is such a dicko," and then paying it off later with that shopkeeper indeed being a dicko. And the main cast as well doesn't waste your time with theatrical posturing or pretentious accents.
Take Jensen with you. He can help keep her in check. Despite what else he may be, he has a healthy respect for women.
So, I heard she was a looker, if you catch my drift. I mean, you've seen her, right? Okay.
And the cities fit into this too, with big smokies and monorails and cool screens and grumpy guards, and the soundtrack that goes for reggae motifs, breakbeats and airy guitars and goofy ass tracks like this one. Though I will say that Nobuo isn't exactly the greatest at choosing his instruments. Dude didn't have too much of a say in how shit sounded back in the SNES or PS1 days due to the limitations that sound chips and the like brought, so that never really stood out before now, with him embracing the wild breadths of possibilities by using bland, clean, and unmodded default rock drum kits, butt rock metal guitars, and strings and orchestras out of the most basicest bitch-ass box. And yeah, sure, his melodies are catchy, but catchy tends to work best with punchier instrumentation. And 13 sadly has very little of that, often drowning out set melodies with rather generic arrangements and the like. Not that this is a big deal to me at all, but I hear so often how people complain that his OSTs have dipped in quality 9 or 10 onward, and well, this is why. He hasn't lost his touch, so to say. The lack of limitations just shows the touches he never had in the first place. But yeah. Anyway, I don't think I'd have to stretch much to say that this game is amazing. And the worthy entry within a series that has a legacy this grand. Sure, it's not mega high budget as they used to be, and in a way that shows, but to me, that is a good thing, as you can't make a game on the scale of Final Fantasy VII or IX and have it look like... But if you make a game that looks about just a gen behind with a higher resolution, like how the Final Fantasy X and XII remasters looked, then you can pull it off just fine, which is basically what they did here. Thank fuck. I mean, imagine them being so far up their own asses, demanding only the highest level technology, that they straight up end up compromising the entire game along with it. That would be mad. 13 though is everything I want from an RPG, really. Huge, sprawling cities with varied designs between them, unique characters, gut-fucking moments, proper bands, and maybe even a really engaging battle system too. And don't get me wrong, I liked what they did with 10 and 12, but just like how 9 was a super solid throwback after the innovative 7 and 8, 13 does much the same, and I respect the team over at Square.